All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Sparks podcast, where we discuss what sparks inspiration, insight, creativity, and meaning in life. Once again, I'm your host, Nick Ross, and I'm extremely excited to introduce today's guest, Aprille Walker, also known as the Yoga Ranger. Aprille is a yoga instructor from Texas who has over 17 years and 2,000 hours of training and teaching experience, including Yin, Restorative, Hatha, Vinyasa, Tantric and mindfulness meditation, pranayama, and more. She shares her wisdom about yoga, breathwork, and the relationship between the body and the nervous system. And we dive deep into the practice of Yin Yoga, what it is, how it's different than other types of yoga, and why it's so powerful. We also talk about the topic of burnout, why it's so common, what are some things that we can do about it. Aprille runs a very successful YouTube channel known as the Yoga Ranger Studio with over 400 free videos where she shares the spotlight with her now famous cat Lucy, who makes an appearance in this episode if you are watching on YouTube. So be sure to check out the links to all her free videos as well as a ton of great information on her website. A big thanks to Aprille for a great conversation. And once again, a big thank you to all of you for watching and listening. And I hope you enjoy today's episode.
For inviting me, and I'm so excited to talk about this. And it's great to talk to somebody who's practiced with me for a little while and have done a lot of the videos, and it just feels kind of cool to have a conversation with somebody who's been practicing with me from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's so great to actually talk to you in person instead of just the one way through the screen, right? So you run the Yoga Ranger Studio channel, and so it's mainly focused on yoga, but kind of specializes in Yin Yoga.
It is. I found Yin early, like way before it was ever any kind of mainstream, and I fell in love with it. It became part of my practice, and I trained, and just it became more and more part of my life. And I felt like my channel was more about a Yin lifestyle, maybe more than just the Yin yoga practice, but more just like a lifestyle of living Yin. I think we spend so much time in our lives very young, very everything is over the top. We're always in demand. We can't ever turn off. We're always doing. And to me, Yin yoga and restorative yoga and meditation and breath work were all indicative of a balance to be had in our lifestyle, in which everything was so very active and very go, go, go. And it needed to be more just be and rest and care for yourself and heal and check in with yourself and be aware. And so for me, I really felt like my life, I'm very type A, very, very active and always kind of moving around and never struggling to be still. And for me, I needed more of that. And I kind of felt like maybe if I needed it, there are lots of type A people out there that also might need some yin energy, some slowing down, some becoming more quiet and still. And restorative was like that for me. Yin was like that for me. For someone who's very type A and a Gemini, to be still for 5 minutes, 10 minutes is the hardest thing you'll ever do. And I think that there are a lot of other people out there like me.
Yeah, I resonate with that so much. I love that because you're right. There's a very yang energy, which maybe you can kind of get into a little bit of the difference between that. So, like for anyone wondering, like what is Yin Yoga? How is that different from regular yoga? So, can you speak to a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yin yoga is actually dramatically different in the base because it does not come from the traditional India-based yoga. It doesn't come from the yoga philosophy of the old traditional style. It actually is more based on traditional Chinese medicine. So Yin yoga is working with the cold tissues of the body, which would be things like connective tissue, bones, ligaments, joints, all those things that are a little bit more stiff, that are not super active. And particularly fascia or connective tissue is what I call ubiquitous throughout the body. It is wrapped around everything, holding everything together. It's like that wrapping that kind of keeps everything in. It's also within each organ and becomes part of the organ and wraps the organ and becomes part of the tissue. It's also wrapping each muscle fiber and within the muscle fiber. So it's everywhere.
Wow.
And so this tissue is more responsive to what we call a static stretch, something that's held for much longer at a less extended rate. So if you were doing something in a normal yoga class, so a Vinyasa flow or Ashtanga or Hatha, you would be giving it 100%, 110%, because your muscles will go past the point of exhaustion. So you can actually push your muscles past something. When you're looking at building them, your muscles would grow from that tearing process. They often call it like the tearing process, where it basically goes over the extent it is, and it grows from that. Something that happens when you're working with colder tissues is that you can't go quite that far, or you will sort of damage them. They're much more like, I always think of it like taffy. Taffy, when it's cold and stiff, you can kind of pull it apart, but it will break more easily, and it's really slow and it's really tight to pull across. But when it's nice and warm, it's all kind of more mobile. So in Yin Yoga, our goal is to hold poses in a supported static position at about 2/3 of your maximum versus going that 110%. So
Right,
2/3.
right.
And staying there in stillness as much as you can, and then holding it for a time, anytime between 1 and 8 to 10 minutes. And so that longer hold allows you to do a lot of different things. It not only works with the connective tissue and all those cold tissues, like traction. I always think of like traction is literally working with colder tissues. That's how traction works. And it also allows you to be very aware of what's going on in your body, because you're alert, you're awake, you're breathing, you're in a pose, and you're holding it for 5 minutes. And what goes through your mind, what goes through your thoughts and your emotions that come up from moving those tissues around a little bit. So there's like two aspects of Yin Yoga. There's that very introspective, meditative. It can be like a meditation. And there's also that very physical aspect. And on that physical aspect, to add to that, we know that as we get older, our tissues get colder and they get drier. When we work with connective tissue, when we're doing Yin Yoga poses or long-held static poses, we actually are making them more flexible, more mobile, because we're drawing more water into the chambers of our connective tissue. So more fluidity allows us to be more mobile for longer.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, the fascia it's something that as soon as I started to learn about that, it was like astonishing to just think of. There was one video where a woman was wearing like basically a onesie or like a one-piece suit, and she had all the muscles kind of like printed on it, and she was giving an example of the fascia, and she kind of wrapped it around in her hip, and everything got pulled into one direction. And it just, when I started Yin, I was just astounded at the power of the pause, which is going to be actually the title of our podcast today, of just that slowing down and that pausing. But it was so powerful. And to hear you say that it actually gave room for more fluid to kind of go in, or like hydration. I couldn't believe it after I did it. It was transformative. And so did you struggle with that at the beginning? Like the whole sitting still for a while, being the type A?
Very much so. And I never claim to start off as a dancer or a gymnast. I am stiff. In terms of strength, I am much stronger than I am flexible. So I can hold a standing balance pose forever. But to forward fold is a personal challenge.
Right.
So for me, that was really helpful, because I really found more flexibility. But I also found that I became more aware of how my body was working, and I became more aware of how my body was in space. And I became more aware of where I felt things, like sensations in different parts of the body and thoughts that came up. If I did a certain pose, I'd feel anger.
Right.
All of a sudden, I just big flash of anger, or I'd feel like I wanted to cry really hard. And it was like, why is this working like that? It's like, why would emotions and moving my body in a certain way, and I've been doing yoga a long time, so traditional yoga, so I would think that that would have come up before, but it really didn't. So it's almost as if there's like emotional history kind of stored in those tissues in some way.
Yeah.
And so when you move them around, obviously it's going to shake some stuff up. And
Right.
I find that people in yin classes very often will have strong emotions come up and then sort of shift out. And I say it's the old Shrek style. It's better out than in.
Right,
So
right, yeah.
let it all go, right? But you asked about the difference between yin, and that's really what yin is. And traditional yoga is based on breath mirroring with movement, and it's more muscle focused.
Right, right.
It is definitely flexibility, but we're not holding the poses for very long. Hatha yoga, it may be 5 breaths, sometimes 8 breaths. If it's very traditional, it may be 10. But we're looking at 3 to 5 minute holds in these poses that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Lesson to be learned there. Discomfort is something, if you learn to deal with it on the mat, you can learn to deal with it anywhere in your life.
I love that.
So it's just it's like a deep learning experience, because for me, it was like diving into who I am, what I'm thinking, how I'm breathing, how my body's moving, and a lot of respect for the differences in the bodies. And we start really diving deep into yin, you discover that there are so many, each bone on each side is not the same. So if you were to look at the bones in left hand and right hand, right arm, left arm, they would look completely different. They're formed completely different. They look like they're from 2 different bodies.
Really interesting.
And I think I always thought that bones would look the same on both sides, right?
Yeah, like the symmetrical skeletons that you see are always generally the same.
Yeah, and that's really not how the body grows or develops. It'll often be how you use your body, how you learn to crawl, how you learn to walk, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. If you had a big growth spurt, you might have some spiraling of bones. So sometimes you'll see a leg bone that actually begins to spiral. And that's how some people can have better internal rotation, what we call internal rotation versus external rotation. You may have one better on one side than the other because the bones on one side may have spiraled and the other side did not as much.
Interesting.
So it'll look completely different. And so every body is different from another, and every bone is different from side to side. So everybody's super unique. We're beyond unique. We're unique.
Right. Even unique within ourselves. It's left and right side, and
Yes. So what one side will do, and if it feels really easy on one side, it may feel really challenging and very uncomfortable on the other side, simply because of how your body has developed and how you use your body in your everyday life.
Right.
So yin is that checking in. I'm able to check in a little bit better in a yin pose because I'm there for a really long time and it's really uncomfortable. So I'm able to check in and say, how does this feel? What do I feel? What are the sensations I have here? What's coming up for me emotionally, mentally, physically? And I think in a normal yoga class, you're moving and breathing, and maybe you don't have that kind of time to really check in quite as deeply.
Yeah, no, I definitely resonate with that. Like I like I guess I'll call it regular yoga or yang yoga or yang. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly. But I enjoy that. But there's something, like you say, about slowing down and just sitting in that pose for 5 minutes. Like, it's amazing what happens. Like, there's so much happening. And I feel like with the other yoga, I'm rushing through it and I'm on to the next pose and I'm just like skipping ahead. And when I slow down, it's like you said, you notice, oh, there's some frustration here. And then it's like, well, I heard the quote, well, that's where yoga begins, right? When you get that discomfort or when you get that emotion coming up, when you get that resistance, it's like, how do you interact with that being kind of where the yoga begins? So I love that you brought in that element of emotion and being trapped in the body, because it does seem like emotion gets trapped in the body somehow.
It does. And we know that we now even have research showing that strong emotions from your ancestors are actually still in your body, genetically, through your DNA, through your body. And so we may not be just releasing our emotions, we might be releasing things from the past, from other
Right.
people. So it gets much more complex when you start looking at the body kind of holding on to stuff. And so I feel like yin is just really that practice that lets you slow down enough to pay attention, because like you said, we're moving from one thing to the other. We're always looking for the next thing. We're always moving to the next thing. What if the next thing is 5-10 minutes away?
Right, right. Yeah.
And you got to be there in that moment, and you've got to kind of hang out there. And I always thought that yin was like a really hard practice. I know a lot of people say it's really easy. I'm like, it's not a easy practice. It's a practice that makes you be fully in your body. And that can be so hard when we spend our
Right.
lives constantly doing something else
Right.
and being
Especially with our
distracted.
culture. Yeah, our culture
Yeah.
these days is just, yeah, is there ever really moments where you just sit and you're not pulling out your phone, you're not texting someone, you're not thinking about the next thing that you're going to do? So I remember, I think you said in one of the videos about the hardest pose being
Mhm.
shavasana.
Yep.
And that would be, I think, astounding to people, right? I think a lot of people skip over it, but why would that be such a difficult pose?
You are alone with your thoughts, no pose. You're just laying on the floor. It's very vulnerable because you
Mm.
are awake and alert, and you're laying on your back. Usually, you can take different poses of it, but generally, most people lay on their back. And you are just alone with your thoughts and your emotions, and you can't move. You're not in a pose. There's no sensations really. You're just there laying
Right,
there,
right.
relaxed. It's like right before you go to bed, but you know you're not going to sleep.
Mm.
So just laying down, I mean, it's this I always tell people, go lay down in the middle of your living room without falling asleep for 10 minutes.
Right, right.
It's so hard to do. It's so hard because we're used to going and always being
Hmm.
expected to go. And what's next? And like, you'll be like, the dog's calling. I should get up and get the dog. I should
Right.
get the cat. I should get the phone. Yeah. Stay still. Being still is hard,
Mm.
especially in the culture that we're in right now. Being still and being without something to do or
Hmm.
interact with or be distracted being the key word here,
Yeah.
is really hard. And so Shavasana is this practice of just lying still, fully relaxed, and letting everything that your body learned, because your body learns during your practice,
Mm.
it becomes smarter. It gains knowledge and skills and positioning and movement and fluidity during your practice, any
Mm.
practice of yoga, yin or otherwise. And when you take Shavasana, you're allowing your body to incorporate that and use it. So it's like if you go to a conference and you learn a really cool new technique to podcast,
Right, right.
and you go home and you don't use it for a year, do you really take it in? And like you go back to, you're like, oh, I should use that. You've probably
Mm.
forgotten how it worked and what it did. And you're like, do I have my notes? If you go home after that conference and you use it on the next time you interview someone,
Hmm.
you're going to incorporate it into your body. It's going to become part of what you do, and it's going to become intuitive. And you're going to, if you like it,
Right,
it's going to
right.
become intuitive, and it's going to be really easy. And you're just going to keep doing it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Shavasana allows your body to learn and incorporate that and to process everything that changed. And then when you get up from Shavasana, your body's ready to put that into action, to use it.
Right. Yeah, because it's amazing, especially the yin yoga. After I get up and I walk upstairs, I usually do it in my basement, and I walk upstairs, and it's just, it's like, oh, even how to describe it. It's like the whole world just opens up a little bit more, right? And I just, and it's not that I see more, but in a way, I see more of the world. Like my awareness is much deeper into myself, and even, yeah, like even just body stuff and balance, and not even realizing how tight I was until I did the practice, and then all of a sudden after, sometimes I'm like, how was I even alive? How was I even breathing? Like, how was I even going my day to day with that feeling? And you don't notice it until it's gone.
Exactly. And even more than that, I think back to what was my body like before yoga at all?
Right, right.
How was I even functioning without
Right,
yoga?
right, right.
I could get up in the morning and I like barely walk around. I'm like, without yoga, if I even take like, this is very rare that I will take like 4 days off from
Hmm.
yoga, happens about once a year. I come back thinking, how did I do this before yoga? Because I can
Right.
barely move. I'm like so
Right.
stiff and I'm stressed and I'm tense and everything's tightened up and I'm angry and I'm like all frustrated. I think, wow, yoga just makes all that possibility for me to process. It allows me to
Mm,
process. And so I process on the mat. I tell people I
right.
process all my everything on the mat.
Right. Right.
I get it all out there. And I think of it, the mat is like a practice space. It's not just
Hmm.
your yoga practice space, it's your life practice space.
Right.
You're learning life skills.
Hmm.
Like today, I filmed a class and I was saying, what do you gain? Think about what you gain from your practice, the skills that you are developing. Number one thing, breathe.
It's a good
Just
reminder.
check in with yourself and breathe. No matter
Hmm.
what's going on, breathe. The things that you learn about being compassionate, listening to your body, being aware, checking in, um, not letting everything, being patient with yourself, understanding that there's a process to everything. If you want to
Mm,
get into a certain pose at some point and you really are working toward a certain goal, which you can, then it's going to be a process and you need to be patient with that process. Patience with the process goes off into your life. You learn to be
mm.
more patient. You learn to breathe. You learn to be more intuitive and to listen to your body and to other people and to be kinder to yourself and to other people.
Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think that's what makes a really good practice is it's not an isolated thing, right? It bleeds out into the rest of your life. And especially this practice has probably done it more subconsciously than totally consciously about that. But so I'm curious about how the channel started for you. Like how did that come about that you started the channel?
I actually did the channel in response to, I had a lot of local clients. I owned a studio, a rather large studio at the time.
Right. Okay.
Um, and I had traveling clients that were traveling all the time and they'd be gone a lot. And they were like, could you we want to practice with you when we're on the road.
Hmm.
Could you make some videos? And I was like, where would I put these up? I was like,
Right.
YouTube. So I started putting them up on YouTube and I started with them being private, but then it got really complicated to get people logged in that way. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
just make them public. And so I just kept loading videos for my private clients or my clientele
Hmm.
in my local studio. And then I had someone reach out to me and say, another YouTuber that taught yoga said, you really are good at teaching yin and restorative.
Hmm.
You should really take this seriously. And I was like, for what?
Right.
And then I started thinking about it. I thought, well, okay, why not? And so then I started uploading a lot more often because it was maybe, like twice a month before that. And then it
Hmm.
became 2 or 3 times a week for a while,
Wow.
for about a year and a half. And then it was uh, twice a week for a while, then weekly. And it just kind of became something bigger. Um, I remember reading a note that really kind of sent me along my YouTube route. It was like, isn't it wonderful if you can make a difference in 10 people's lives?
Hmm.
You're fabulous. But what happens if you could make a difference in 10,000 people's lives?
Hmm.
Would you do it? If you had the chance, would you do it? And I thought, yes, I would.
That's a great question. That's a big question.
I had 100 students in my studio. I was like, that's 100 students I'm affecting. I'm helping
Hmm.
them feel more comfortable and be happier and whatever. But I could do that for 10,000. I could do
Hmm.
that for 10 million. I mean, exponential how many people you can reach. If you can help 10,000 people, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, because you're up. I think you had what 33,000 subscribers at this point, roughly.
About was that 32, a little close to
Yeah, yeah,
32.
yeah. No, and,
Yeah.
and all your videos are just yeah. Like I said, I've used them for a while now, and I sometimes I forget how good Yin Yoga is, and then I get again distracted. Right, I get distracted by other practices and other things, and in the summer, I kind of do more outdoor activities, and then when I return to the Yin, it's just I'm just reminded and blown away every single time I do it. So do you find that that still happens for you? Like that powerful shift still really resonates with you when you do it?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I went on a little binge for a month of just doing Hatha yoga, and I love a yang yoga practice just as much as everybody else. I know everybody's going to be shocked to hear
Right,
that
right,
I actually predominantly practice Hatha yoga all the time. And even
right.
I do a lot of Vinyasa flow and
Hmm.
Ashtanga yoga as well. So, but I came back to Yin Yoga and I did my first practice back after a month. And it was just, that big, deep, take a deep
Yeah,
breath,
yeah.
exhale it all out. And it just felt so good. I just remembered how much I love that practice, how much it grounds me and centers me, how much it allows me to be a better person, a
Mm.
better parent, a better wife, a better human.
Right, right.
And I, like you, walk off the mat thinking, wow. I mean, it's not just physically, I feel so much better. I'm so much more flexible when I
Hmm.
practice yin,
Right, right.
but I'm also mentally so much more open and flexible and creative. It
Mm.
brings a lot of creativity to my life. For me, it just really
Interesting.
inspires me to be super creative,
Hmm.
and I miss it when I don't practice it. At least once or twice a week, I really miss it, and I feel like it's now part of every week.
Right, right. Yeah, no, and you're such a good facilitator. I think that person was right in that there seems something kind of special about the way that you facilitate. And I would imagine it would be hard to do and facilitate. Like, does that kind of like how did you go about that, developing that skill?
Um, I actually teach on YouTube
Mm,
exactly the way I teach in person.
right, okay.
I'm a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely guide a class without actually doing it with them. But I really feel like when we're practicing together, we're a group and we're sharing an experience.
Mm,
And I really feel like I'm more deeply connected to my students, and they actually prefer to have me practice most of the practice with them.
right, I
So
see.
I just it actually kind of bled into YouTube being like that. For me, I think it's interesting because, like today, the practice I was guiding was one of the practices that I really have been working on for about 6 months, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been kind of in my head moving around. And I did it today, and I kept doing the poses and how they were laid out, and I kept thinking in my mind, this is exactly the way I wanted it to be.
Right, right.
This feels so good. I'm like, it feels so good to me. And my body
Mm,
is loving this pose. And I
right.
love the way it's laid out. And for me, it is so intuitive to lay out poses that make sense physically and how we're working with the body
Mm-hmm.
and mentally and emotionally. And so it's a flow that makes sense to me. And I always feel like once I'm done teaching it, I feel so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to myself, certain ones I obviously feel a lot more than some, but I always come out of there saying, wow, I hope that works for somebody else as well as it did for me.
Right, right. At least it's a success already, right? If it was a success for you.
Yes. And I think that that comes across. I
Hmm.
think people know if you are enjoying what you're doing.
Right,
If you're just doing
definitely.
something that, you don't like or you're not enjoying, I think people are going to get that, because some of my most popular videos are the ones that I absolutely loved
Right,
making.
right.
And so obviously it came across that people like them too. So it must be like a thing that's shared. Like it must sound like I really liked it or my voice was a
Hmm.
certain way. So it that kind of just it makes it simple for me to facilitate it that way. And I've taught it long enough in workshops and locally that it just seemed like it worked perfectly just to transport it to a camera.
Right, right. Well, and it seems like as my cat's getting up and walking away, that might be a good a time to bring up Lucy, it seems like
Lucy.
everybody loves. So I don't know if she's hanging
Of
out there,
course.
the
She
famous
is.
Lucy. So if you do watch any of April's videos on Yoga Ranger, Lucy is the star of the show. So when
She
did
is.
Lucy start practicing with you?
The very beginning,
Mm.
I just started putting out playlists, monthly playlists, and I was trying to add some videos from further back.
Hmm.
And I got back to, I think, one of the first or second videos I ever put out. And Lucy is right there. She's there the
Yeah.
entire time. Um, she's been there all along. I don't even know why. I didn't do anything. I just left the door open and she
Right.
came in. She comes into my practice as I practice my own personal practice. She's
Mm-hmm.
always here. And she's always involved and she's always on me. So
Right.
it just, she started to realize, I think there was a camera there at some point.
Right. Right.
Because you can sometimes see her look and go, is the camera on? She
If
knows the
not, I'll
green
leave.
light.
Oh, she knows the
She
green
knows.
light. Yeah.
Oh, she knows. She
Yeah.
knows the green light. So she's like, is the camera on? If it's not, okay, whatever. Um, but for about a year, she kind of took a year off. So I had
Oh, did
PJ.
she?
So you'll
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
PJ's like a hi. PJ's like a larger size Lucy, and
Mm-hmm.
he took over for her for a year, and then she came back and she was kicked him out.
Wow.
And
Took
so
back over.
yeah, she's always been super involved, and I honestly, PJ often comes in, Link comes in, Lucy
Mm-hmm.
comes in, Pat comes in every now and then. Bentley, the new kitty, is now in almost every single video I've put out or will be
Right.
putting out for 2024 so far. He's
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
almost every one of them. So I think they're drawn to the practice and the
Mm.
energy of, they love this space. This is my
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
yoga practice room. And so they feel, I think, a certain energy in the space, and they will come in here and just sleep all day in here if they can,
Mm.
because they just like the space.
Yeah, and you said something before we started recording that was great about practicing like life is, right? Which I loved. So you mentioned about the cat coming in, and that there's not often places in life where you're going to get complete silence and complete quiet. So actually bringing that in to the practice was really interesting.
Yeah, we're living householder. We call it householder yoga.
Hmm.
Householder
Right.
yogis. We live real lives with real
Hmm.
people in real communities, in real homes, in which things happen.
Hmm.
Noises come out, and you have to jump up and run over and do something. And you can't, I mean, we're not living those lives where we're in a silent place where there's no sound, no distraction, nothing happening. And to learn to manage that and
Mm.
to not be distracted by it, to not be, I often say in meditations, I have a couple meditations that are about, listening for sounds and noticing the sounds that normally bug you, that are irritating, and saying, this is not irritating, it's just a sound.
Mm.
And so for me, hearing different sounds, I hear it, I acknowledge it, and I say, this is not important. It's not a sound that bothers me anymore because I'm not going to be distracted by it. So in my practice, I don't think I notice anything anymore, really, because
Right.
I'm
Right.
in my practice, I'm in my body, I'm in my breath, and I'll hear stuff, and then I will just be like, okay, incorporate that in. Um,
Mm.
and Lucy is part of that. She does some stuff that I have no idea what she's going to do when she comes in.
It's all improv.
It is. I've had her jump on my shoulders, on my
Hmm.
back, been on my back in downward facing dog.
Right.
Um, she will do whatever she will do. And it is, she does her own thing. I don't train her for that. She really just does it.
Right. Right. Have people asked you if you train her?
Yeah. They're like,
Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you do to get her to do that? I can't get
Right.
my cat to do that. I said, Lucy is what Lucy does. I mean, she and I have a really special relationship. I will
Mm.
admit that, because some
Yeah.
people are like, do you have a really close? Lucy and I are very close.
Mm.
She sleeps right here, and we literally are breathing the same air every night.
Right. Doing
Um,
pranayama together.
we are, like, her face is right there. We breathe the
Mm.
same air. And she follows me around all day, and she sits on my lap while I'm on the computer. And so Lucy and I are pretty much nonstop together
Mm.
when I'm here. And we have, when I found Lucy, I was looking for a black kitten. And Lucy said, go get your kennel and pay them money and take me home.
Right.
And so I felt like she was channeling my grandmother.
Mm. Right. Right.
So Lucy came home and she just took over the house, and we all just fall in line.
Mm. Yeah, because you mentioned there was quite a few. So how many animals do you have?
I have 7 cats and 1 dog.
7 cats and 1 dog. Wow.
7 cats and 1 dog. We keep trying not to have more, but they just sort of keep landing here, just
Yeah.
because people call us and say, hey, nobody's going to take this cat. It's going to end up somewhere. And we're like, okay, we'll come get it.
Mm.
And we end up, everybody in the house is a rescue. They're all rescued from different
Oh, wow. Yeah.
rescues around the country, different states. Um, the one dog is Daphne, and she thinks
Right.
she's a cat. So we're
Right.
just going to
Right.
call her a cat.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a very large cat.
A very large cat that doesn't understand that she's a dog.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, they're all involved. They've all shown up in videos. Every single one
Hmm.
of them has been in at least 3 to 5 videos each. And they just wander in. I
Right.
just leave the
Right.
door
So you
open.
just
They
leave the
just
door
wander
open
in.
and you just, wow.
They do what they're going to do. So um, I've been told I'm a bit of a cat whisperer. So maybe
Mm.
that tends to help. I work at the shelter now. In the shelter, they're like, "You're the cat whisperer lady. We
Right.
know you. We've heard about you." I'm like,
Even the cats have
okay.
probably heard about you at this point, right?
Cat whisperer. Yes. So I feel like I've had cats since I was like 2. And so I have
Mm.
a very special relationship with them, I think. Um,
Yeah, and I saw your new logo actually, I think has a cat in it, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, the new logo. The logo designer asked me, what colors do you want? And I love red. I know
Mm.
that's kind of a weirdly controversial color for some people, but red is the color of life.
Mm.
And so I've always loved red. And then she said, I took some of your background of like your watercolor, because I do a lot of watercolor. Most people
Hmm.
don't know that. I actually do draw and paint.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Um, and so she took kind of the image of my watercolor that I'd done. And then I said, well, it has to have a cat on it. And so she put like, it almost looks exactly like a Lucy and like a little
Hmm.
outline. It's perfect. So it really is, I feel like, indicative of me as a person and as the
Hmm.
studio overall, this sort of creative, soft space, natural, authentic with cats.
Right, right. Well, they seem to really help, and they have definitely a personality of their own. I love seeing Lucy in the videos. So the shelter, is that like you said, it's a cat rescue, or that you're involved in a cat rescue, or is that just
I'm involved
rescuing cats as you
with
see them?
probably rescuing
Right.
cats mostly, but no, I work with the local shelter and I
Mm.
do 2 different things. I do at the local PetSmart, they have the local pet store, they have adoptable cats
Hmm.
from the shelter. And so I go take care of those once a week. And then once a week, I go into the shelter itself and I am the kitty lady who goes
Right.
in and takes care of all the cats for the day and gets them fed and cleaned up and cared for and medicated and checked over and just takes care of them for that day essentially.
Mm.
And that to me is super important because I am very pro rescue and very animal oriented. I always
Mm.
have been. My parents called me Dr. Doolittle when I was
Right.
little.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're always trying to rescue something and save something. So for me, that really needed to be integrated in anything I did, including
Mm.
yoga,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's a lifestyle choice. It's like something that's super important to me.
Hmm.
So on my membership side as well, I give back 10% of everything I make. I give to local rescues,
Oh,
but I
wow.
realized that giving money wasn't enough. I wanted to give my time too. So I decided that maybe I should donate time as
Mm.
well, because I want to help. I want to be the person that actively does something other than
Hmm.
adopting them all,
Hmm.
um, that actually does something and uses their platform and their voice to promote adoption,
Hmm.
fostering, care, animal rescue support, and donations.
Hmm.
And so, and then I'm also working on a TNR project, which is a trap, neuter, return project
Okay.
for a local community of about 40 cats
Hmm.
that we are about to uh, do a trap on and to get them all fixed and get their shots and checkups, and then send them back to their community to live out their supported lives in a community that really loves them.
Mm. That's
So
amazing. And because you're in Texas, I believe.
I'm in Texas,
What part of Texas?
a little bit northeast of Dallas.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
Fate is kind of just a little about 35 minutes northeast of Dallas.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. The theme here of this rescuing animals, and then through like yoga and Yin Yoga, almost like rescuing people or rescuing souls in a way, right? There's this kind of deep care, I guess, that I get from you, of that you care very much about animals and helping people. And is that something that has always been at the forefront of who you are, even when you were younger?
My family would say yes. I never thought I was. I never thought I was like the person that would be really like that. But my family's always said I was always super tenderhearted and super empathic. I can really feel when people, it's upsetting to me when people are sad, and I can feel that. And if there's anything that I can do, and there are things I can do, I can help in some way. I can try my best. And if it helps one person, if one video that I put out helps one person, I did my job.
Right,
And I did it well, and I helped one person, and that should be enough. And it is enough that one person feels better because of something I did.
Right, right. Well, I
And I
mean,
think,
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I think that's, I want to leave the world a better place than when I arrived. I want to offer whatever solace I can to other people. I want to try to bring a little peace into someone's life if I can, if it's for 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. If I can give you a little quiet time, a little rest, a little time to breathe and space to breathe, I am excited that I can do that. And I'm glad I can, because I have the skills to offer that, and I should offer that.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I definitely appreciate all the videos and the mindfulness and meditations that you offer. So I definitely get a sense, while participating with you, and you're very good at that, even though not doing it in the same room, you're very good at still connecting through that. So that's something that I definitely appreciate about your videos. So one thing
Thank
I
you.
was wondering, you said about, like, being empathic and really caring for people. And I think one of the things that's common for people who are empathetic and compassionate and they care so much is sometimes like burnout from helping so much, right? And that was one thing I was going to maybe bring into this conversation of burnout being so common. And how do you balance that with being so caring and wanting to help people, but also self-care and taking care of yourself?
That's a really good question. And I think I hit a burnout level earlier this year
Right, right.
where I was doing a lot. I was handling medical care for a couple of people with cancer,
Mm,
um, and running my life and a family and a household and homeschooling my kids. It
wow.
got to be a little bit too much. And I took some time off, and then I really sat down and I reached out. I no, I not even reached out. I accepted help.
Mm,
People reached out to me and said, I know what you're going through. I want to help you. Will you accept my help? And I said, yes.
right, right.
I'm kind of I can take care of myself. I can do my own thing. I don't need anybody. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
my habit.
Right, right.
But this time I said, no, I would like, I need help. I need
Mm-hmm.
help this time. For once in my life, I need help. And so I think people that are often caretakers or very empathic, we tend to not accept help very well. We're very bad at it. And so I really had to step outside of myself and let my ego go and
Mm,
say, for once, I can't take care of this completely by myself. I would love to get some help. And I had some great offers. A life coach, I had a creativity coach reach out to me. I had people reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love to do this for you.
wow.
And I said yes. And they really helped support me and help me really kind of realign with what's important to me, had me ask some questions about what I really want out of my life and what my
Mm,
goals are and what my really deep seated desires are. They help me put boundaries in place, which are super
mm,
important for empathic people.
right, right.
Um, and worked with me for boundaries. And I think that was really important. And I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on boundaries coming up, like,
Right, right.
because
Okay.
I really think they're super important and they're hard and people need help with them, really.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So those are all, I think burnout is because we are so connected. I know that sounds terrible because we all want to be more connected, but in
Mm,
this world where we're connected to people all over the globe, And we are seeing horrible things happen, and we are hearing about horrible things happening. And every single moment of every single day, we are weighed down by the collective pain and suffering of our world. And as much as we want to help, you cannot help if you are drowning.
Right.
You need to be able to save yourself and learn how to float before you can save anybody else. So you need to kind of set some boundaries of what you are able to do. Because I think I look at cats, like today I'm there and I've got 6 new kittens to take care of. And I'm like, I want to take every one of you home.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I can't. I can't take them all home, but I can send out their pictures, and I can clean up their cages, and I can make them look good, and I can try to share their information and try to get them adopted. And I can do that. So you need to decide what you can do and set boundaries for what you can do and what you energetically are able to do. Because if I give all my energy away and I save all those cats, what happens when the next 6 cats arrive?
Right.
Because there'll always be more. There'll always be more people needing something. So you've got to set a boundary and say, you know what? I only have so much energy to give away. And I need to decide where that energy goes. And I need to set boundaries for how that's distributed. And I need a lot of self-care. So I have a lot of rituals in place in my life every single day, practices that are very consistent, that I do not miss, that help support me every single day. And those are part of like my structure of my day, from beginning to end. I have a pattern. I have little stopping points, because people think I'm just going to do my yoga and my meditation in the morning, then I'm done for the day.
Right.
Life doesn't stop throwing stuff at you for the rest of the day. So you need little pit stops throughout the day. So I have little points in time throughout the day where I meditate. I do yoga nidra. I do a yoga practice. I do 5 sun salutations. I do 1 yin yoga pose or 1 restorative pose. I do some breath practices. I do all of these things throughout the day in little short things versus doing like 2 hours and we're done.
Yeah, so it's spread out. For the yoga nidra, you said. So what is the yoga nidra for anyone who might be wondering?
A beautiful practice that if you haven't tried it, you will fall in love with it and you will never forget it. Yoga nidra is not really a practice. It's actually a state. They call it a state. It's a state of being in where your body is completely asleep and fully relaxed, and you are fully released. Like your body is on sleep zone, but you are still awake, but you're right at that point of being almost not. So it's the state of awareness. And it's the state of awareness that if you do the practice, it is almost like a mini nap. So they usually run about 15 to 30 minutes. Generally, that's how long most yoga nidras are. And it's usually a body scan, some sensory scans, some breath work. And it's all done lying on your back in Shavasana or however you feel comfortable. And it's this way of just really settling yourself into this deep state of rest. And when you come out of it, you feel like you've taken like a 4-hour nap. Your brain is clear. Your body is really mobile. You feel energized. You're back to a good balance of energy. And it really brings you back to your core self. So a lot of Yoga Nidra's goal is to bring you back to your true and authentic self, which is the things that are, like for me, animals, rescuing animals, saving animals. That's so integrated into my core belief system. Yoga Nidra's goal is to bring you back to that core so that you can make decisions proactively versus reactively. And you can make them from that core belief system, that authentic you. So it's a really beautiful, relaxing practice. It doesn't require you to do anything. You don't need anything. You just can lay down wherever you are and be guided through this really relaxing thing. And if you get nothing else out of it, you will feel so relaxed. super relaxing practice.
Yeah, I love that because I think in episode 4 of the podcast that I did with Edwin Rutch, we talked about that a little bit about like anxiety and making decisions out of reactivity and out
Mm.
of, fear and anxiety versus taking action out of like a peacefulness or a calmness. And it's just such a different, like, I feel like my wisest action comes from when I can just slow down and reconnect, like you say, to that kind of core self of just, okay, what is it that I truly feel is right in this moment? And often an answer seems like it comes to you rather than having to think about an answer. It seems like something deeper that's more wiser kind of, arises in your mind.
Yeah, you can tap into your intuition in
Mm.
times when you are much more clear and calm and centered. And I think Yoga Nidra, I've been using Yoga Nidra for so long. I think my first teacher was Rod Stryker, and he
Mm.
first came out with Yoga Nidra a long time ago.
Right. Okay.
And I use it probably 2 to 3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
just as sort of like a reboot. And um, it's just one of those practices that I will always use. And you can use it no matter what's going on. If you're sick, you can
Mm-hmm.
use Yoga Nidra. If you're in the hospital, you can use Yoga Nidra. If
Right,
you can't
right.
sleep, you can use Yoga Nidra. You can use it anywhere and anybody can use it. So it's so
Mm-hmm.
accessible. There's
Yeah.
nothing required to achieve this state of super calm, soothing, centered, back to your authentic self, and your body just getting some good rest.
Mm. Yeah, rest. That's
Yeah,
that's so
rest.
key.
We all could use that.
Yeah, and again on this theme, I'm glad you resonated with the title too when I reached out to you about the power of the pause, right? Because again, I think this has weaved together so well in our conversation so far, and I'm wondering about like the breath work too. You described kind of like 4 parts of the breath, and I was wondering if you could kind of speak to that a little bit of the significance of that.
In so our breath goes with us everywhere.
Hmm.
We don't have to take anything with us, but our breath has 4 aspects to it. We have an inhale, and people think, oh, we have an inhale and an exhale. But we
Right,
have an
right.
inhale, and then there's a point where you pause, and there's like what we call the void or the pause.
Mm.
And as you inhale, there's a natural little stall. And then as you exhale, there's another little stall at the bottom of the exhale. And these are
Mm.
really special points where you can focus your awareness and notice that in every single breath, you have built in quiet time.
Right, right. Very brief
You can,
moments of quiet.
yeah, you can go and you can extend that pause. I
Mm.
mean, as you begin to kind of work with the breath more and more, you can extend that pause longer and longer and longer. And I find that if I'm really working with it, I can extend that pause without any effort,
Mm.
sometimes for 30, 45 seconds. And the pause, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't
Hmm.
feel like I'm breathless.
Right,
And so that
right.
pause is a place that you can just be.
Mm.
Because inhale and exhale is an action, but pausing is just a natural, it's nothing. It's a
Hmm.
being. You're just
Right,
there.
right.
And so this kind of on the pause at the top of the inhale, there's sort of this exuberance, this uplift. And at the bottom of the exhale, this is grounding and centering. So every
Mm.
time you take a breath, you're filling up with this kind of exuberant energy. And every time you exhale down, you're grounding and centering toward the earth. So you have
Mm.
these 2 beautiful aspects, heaven and earth. You're kind of reaching to both of them, and you're feeling that in every single breath that you take, which is
Mm.
somewhere around 20,000 breaths a day.
Right, right. Wow.
Um, and the nice thing about the breath is the one thing that is both automatic.
Hmm.
So it happens without you thinking about it or trying.
Right,
And you can also make the breath work.
right. Yes.
So you can use the breath to change your emotions, to change your body's reaction to something.
Mm.
You can, I always tell people, try something like watch a really scary movie and then go back and do some breathing work where you kind of ground and center and extend that exhale a little bit longer. You'll find yourself just downshifting really fast.
Mm.
So you can use the breath to change your emotions, your bodily state, your energy, um, and you can build capacity to breathe better and healthier because the longer you work with the breath, the slower your breaths are. And generally, the average person takes about 16 to 20 breaths per minute. Someone who's been practicing yoga will somewhere between 6 and 10 breaths.
Right.
Someone who's been practicing pranayama or breath regulation for a long time can be somewhere between 3 and 5 breaths a minute.
Wow.
So they slow that breath down. We do know with a little bit of research that actually might make you live longer.
Yeah, it reminds me of like, are you familiar with the Buteyko method at all?
No.
No, okay. So it was kind of that idea. So there was a Dr. Buteyko, I guess, at one hospital somewhere. I'm going to butcher this, but I'll do my best to try and stick to the facts. But he noticed in his patients, there was like, people who got more sick and people who got less sick. So he started to do this research and he noticed the people who were getting more sick, their breaths per minute were up near between 15 and 20. And the people who were getting better and who did better overall actually had much lower rates of breath. So he started to do all this research into trying to get people to slow down their breath and breathe through the nose and all of these aspects of it. And it was a fascinating story. There's a guy, I forget what his name is. I think at the Oxygen Advantage, he was on a couple podcasts and he speaks to that. And it was fascinating. That got me kind of down the rabbit hole of breath work. Him and James Nestor. I don't know if you know James Nestor, The Science of Breath.
Yes, I love James Nestor.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I took a pranayama course from Dr. Vasant Lad, who is the Ayurvedic Institute of America.
Okay.
Kind of the source for Ayurvedic things throughout the world, essentially. But I took it from him and he recommended a number of books, and James Nestor's book was one of them. And I got so literally down the rabbit hole of breathwork and what breathwork can do for you. So part of my practice every day, part of that outline, that kind of parameters is a daily breathwork practice. So I do his basic practice that he taught us at the very beginning, which was like a cleansing practice. And with cleansing breaths. And I do that every single day. Even if I have like just a few minutes, I will do cycles of it shorter, but the whole thing sometimes can take up to 45 minutes, but generally it's about 15 to 20 if you kind of worked with it.
Right, okay.
But that's just part of my yoga practice, meditation, then breath work. And that's part of the box system. And I feel like my allergies aren't as bad. I'm less reactive. My breath is a lot deeper and fuller. I feel like it's really helped bring more clarity to my thought because I was getting kind of foggy brain, and that's kind of helped with the foggy brain. So it's been 4 years ago, and I've been doing it for 4 years every single day.
Wow.
And I think it's been like life-changing.
Really? Yeah.
Been a vastly life. So I really recognize that the breath has a lot, just regulating the breath in different ways has so much value to shifting your energy, your body, your thought process, your body reaction to things that I definitely teach it a lot, and I hope to teach more of it as I go. But it's definitely a rabbit hole, though. You could go way down there and just all sorts of fun breath work type stuff.
Yeah, and who would have thought something that you do every day naturally, right? It's like, oh yeah, I breathe all the time, right? Like I breathe every day. I'm a great breather, but it may not be the case, right? And I think so often we don't understand even like the mouth breathing, right? Like how much that actually affects like our state and hyperventilating. And there's all these kind of there's another great book by Robin Rothenberg. She was a yoga teacher for about 30 years, and she got really, really sick. And she ended up kind of rediscovering the breath through the Oxygen Advantage. I'll post a link because I forget his name. And Sean McCowan, something like that. And so she was getting sicker and sicker. And then she rediscovered the breath work and pranayama. And she goes through all these myths of the breath and how we think, oh, take a bit like the biggest breath you can. And it's actually slow, smooth breaths that help and all about like how the CO2 binds to the oxygen and everything, and it was a fascinating book. It was amazing.
Yeah, I love that idea of like how it's like a boat
Right,
The
right.
oxygen coming in is on a boat, but it has to, like, the CO2 has to get on, so the oxygen has to get off. So
Yeah.
I love that whole comparison was like so cool to me. I thought, oh, oftentimes that myth of like taking a deep breath, it's actually your exhale that has slightly
Mm.
more value than your inhale. And people don't think about that
Mm.
because you've got to help that. So um, when I took the pranayama course, it was really
Mm-hmm.
interesting because he focused on um, holding the breath and doing the three bandhas or three locks on the body. And he did that with the breath out. So after the
Interesting.
exhale and all the breath is gone. And I'd always done it the opposite when you were holding the breath. And I was like, no, you're not holding the breath, you're withholding the breath. And it's amazing how still and quiet you get
Mm.
when you are holding on the complete exhale.
Right.
You become super quiet and everything, it's almost like everything just turns off. It's
Yeah.
so still and quiet. So practicing that is another pause. It's another great
Mm-hmm.
pause in between each one of the breath practices. He has you exhale everything out and then just hold and just be there in that moment and just hold it. And it's amazing how it feels
Mm.
and how once you take that breath in, it's so easy. It's not like you're gasping for air. It's very natural and intuitive.
Yeah, and like again, the power of the pause. I thought that was it actually came to me while I was doing one of your videos and you were doing some breathing stuff. And then you said about the pause at the top and it was just that, oh, the power of the pause because it works with yin yoga, it works with breath work, it works with burnout and overwhelm and fatigue and all of that stuff, right? So I'm just so enjoying speaking with you about this stuff. One thing where my curiosity is going right now is kind of how you went from practicing on your own to like deciding to take teacher training or to take the yoga training. Like how did that shift for you?
Wow. I have to think back about that. It's been a
Okay,
while.
yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I um I actually been practicing on and off like on my own for a long time, just sort of
Hmm.
at home or at a gym at a class every now and then. And then um after my son was born, I really felt like I wanted to go back to the gym and I was
Mm.
doing weightlifting. And then I had a friend say to me, hey, come on, let's go take a yoga class. And I was like, sure, whatever, we'll do it together. I loved it so much that we were talking after class. I was like, I want to take another one. This is great. And a
Mm.
guy behind me said, you should take Wednesday's class. And so I went to Wednesday's class and met my first teacher,
Hmm.
my first guru, if you would call it
Hmm.
that. And she and I became really great friends, still friends now. Um, but she and I just really hit it off. And something about her was just energetically, she was just one of the
Hmm.
most calming. I mean, she could be having the most horrible day because she had some crazy days.
Hmm.
Being her friend, I knew that. But she could walk up to you and just touch your shoulder, and you would be like, "Oh, okay." Your shoulders would just drop, and just she had this way with making the world judgment free,
Hmm.
accepting, compassionate, loving. She always made you feel so cared for and so loved. And I thought, this is amazing stuff.
Hmm.
I would love to do this for somebody else. And so I started working at a studio and I was like, I'll just do check-in and like stuff like that. And I was
Hmm.
going to the studio and doing check-in and being like an assistant to help with props and stuff. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. And the more I could see how life-changing it was for me.
Hmm.
And I thought, I'm somebody who speaks well, who has a master's degree in teaching, essentially.
Right, right, okay.
So I should be able to, I have a psychology undergraduate degree. All
Hmm.
of these things seem like they work together. Um, and I love this. I love it enough that I'd want to actually try to have somebody else enjoy it too.
Hmm.
So I started taking some basic teacher training and it was just kind of exploring my options. And I took my first teacher training, the basic, do you want to be a teacher? Let's give you a day and see what happens.
Right,
So,
right. Before you dive into
um,
200
yeah,
hours or
yeah. Before you dive into the expensive stuff, we're gonna just
hmm.
test you. And I loved it. I learned so much, and I learned so much about my own practice.
Hmm.
And I thought, as shy as I am, as introverted as I am, I think I could do this. I think I can be in front of people and do this. And so I just trained and just fell in love with it and just kept going. And I just finished another training
Oh, did you?
in
Wow.
mid-November with Jason Crandall. And I've been with him on and off for about 10 years, different trainings. And I never stop training because I love what other people can teach you and what you learn about yourself and your practice and other people's practices. So I decided to become a teacher, and it worked. I moved to Texas from Seattle, and there was a job opening, and I started my first class, and I've never stopped.
Wow. Wow. You said you had basically a master's in teaching? That was before?
I do. I have actually I have a lot of weird degrees. I have a
Okay.
master's in teaching and American literature focus because I'd hoped to teach literature at the college level
Right.
because
Okay.
I
Okay.
am a huge reader. You brought
Right.
that up
Right. Yeah.
in our email. I have been a voracious reader my entire life. And so I wanted to teach college literature, but that just didn't quite work out for me. I just didn't find that it worked with my personality as well as I wanted it to.
Right.
So then I ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer.
Right. Okay. I was going to ask about that. I thought I heard that.
And I was a litigation lawyer. So
Mm.
I was someone who was in front of the court, which was very nerve wracking for
Wow.
me.
Yeah. For an introvert.
But I did really, I loved arguing the case.
Right.
I love presenting things. I love the method. The
Mm-hmm.
method is very interesting to me. And so love that. And so it kind of all led into that. Then I had my kids and there was some complications for my daughter. And I ended up staying home rather than going back to work because she needed me. And so yoga came along and it made sense because I loved it. And I thought, why not?
Mm.
You know?
And that's amazing. Like it's always weird to think about the path in life. Like I forget who it was, but I heard a quote that you can never connect the dots forward. It's only looking back that you can connect all the dots. And even in hearing you say that, there's this master's in teaching and this methodology in being a lawyer of arguing the case, and which probably would go together with like the methodology of yoga and a class and a flow and putting together these pieces in a way that makes sense, almost like an argument. So it's amazing how that all ties in, and it seems like you're right where that all kind of came together for you in what you do now.
It does. And you're exactly right. I would never have thought this would be my path somewhere. I had very different ideas of where I would be
Right,
and what I'd
right.
be doing. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would be a vet at age 12, if that helps you at
Right.
all.
Okay. Okay.
I really thought I would be a vet.
Yeah.
But my undergraduate was psychology. That
Mm.
made sense at the time. I mean, it seems like it's all been leading to this, which
Mm-hmm.
in my mind tells me that maybe I was destined, maybe that is my dharma, my
Right.
destiny
Right.
to do this, and that there is purpose. There is a purpose. And I was building up to it all along. I was learning things that would help me later on do something better or well.
Mm.
And that it was all leading up to this, which is
Mm.
okay because I like
Right.
this. This is good.
Yeah, and you're extremely good at it. I really
Thank
enjoy it.
you.
So like at the time, did it feel, because like for me sometimes I wrestle with this idea of like being on some sort of path, right? Of like, oh, I'm on the path or off the path, or is this kind of what I'm supposed to be doing or not? And I feel like stories like yours, they kind of give that inspiration to, even when you think you're not going to the place that you think you're going, it might be a long way around or just a sidetrack, but maybe there's something there to actually support where you will end up.
I think ultimately, and I wrestle with that too. I wrestle with, is
Mm-hmm.
this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this who I'm supposed to be?
Mm.
Is this,
Right.
but I feel like every time I ask that question, something comes back to affirm that this is definitely where I need to be.
Right.
This is definitely what I want to be doing and where I should be doing the most that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that literally burnout, that was the answer to burnout, was that, is this something that is life affirming and important to me? Well,
I
yes, it
see.
is. And so it became a number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I think literally it's a very, if you were to look back at all the jobs I've had in my life, they're all so strange and they seem like they make
Right.
no sense overall. But I mean, I was, I worked for a mobile telephone company.
Right. Okay.
As a customer care person, I ended
Hmm.
up being in what we call escalated calls.
Right. Okay.
You
Yeah.
can guess how those people, I mean, it's people really, really angry. And
Hmm.
I learned how to solve their problem
Mm.
and to calm them down. The moment they
Right.
came on the phone, I was like, I've read your notes and I understand what's going on with you. And I repeat back what happened. And I would
Hmm.
say, I have done this and this and this and this for you. What else can I do for you today? And it would totally deflated the
Right.
argument.
Right. Right.
But I really learned how to like support people and
Hmm.
to offer them some quiet because they were
Right.
really going
Right.
to yell at the next person. And I never got yelled at. Not
Hmm.
in the 2 years I worked there did I ever get yelled
Interesting.
at. So I could diffuse it. And so maybe
Hmm.
that skill of being able to calm people down and
Hmm.
diffuse them and use my voice in a way that is soothing was a
Hmm.
skill I learned as a customer care representative for a mobile company.
Right. Who would have thought? Yeah, that like
Yeah.
maybe that ability to self-regulate,
Mhm.
and I think that says so much, right? If like a lot of people wonder how they can help someone, and oftentimes it's by self-regulating your own energy and your own self, and by keeping that calm and collected and centered, it offers someone else an energy to kind of gravitate towards. So it sounds like that's what you were doing intuitively already at that job.
I think so. And I think I've learned how to refine that over the
Mm.
years, over and over, and develop it and make it better. We obviously learn how to refine certain things that we have, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's. I've always said I'm more like a foundation than I am walls or a roof.
Right.
I
Okay.
like
Okay.
to I like to be that person that's there, that's always there,
Mm.
that you can always come back to, that you know is going to be nice and strong and
Mm-hmm.
stable and consistent. And even if you go away for a while, if you come back, I'm still here. It's a good, strong foundation. I'm still hanging out here. Um, and I like to think of myself that way. I like to think of myself as sort of this very stable, consistent person
Mm-hmm.
that you can always turn to and find a consistent. I mean, back to the yoga practices offered is I want
Mm-hmm.
to be very consistent.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I want to be someone that consistently offers a certain thing, a
Mm-hmm.
certain stylistic, a certain methodology. And I think that's really important to me because I need that. I need to have something that's, foundation, that's grounding, that's centering, that I can always come back to and know that it's
Mm-hmm.
always there for me. And no matter how crazy the world is, I have this place and this person and this space. And I'm hoping that what I do gives somebody that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it does seem like, it is a space, and even like it's kind of funny sitting down in my basement here, and then I actually did one of your videos, a little snack before this podcast. Um, and yeah, it's similar in a way to being with you now and in conversation, but it's a weird form of this, and it's amazing that it happens through technology and video.
Mhm.
Like I can't believe it. Still astounds me sometimes that there's that ability to connect through just like a screen and doing a video
Mhm.
where you're recording into a microphone separate from the audience, but yet someone on the other side can actually receive what it is that you're intending to share.
And I think it's exactly that. It's your intention to share.
Mm.
So when I teach a class in front of a camera, I'm teaching to people.
And Lucy.
In Lucy, in my mind, I am teaching to people.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that have followed me and commented for, 5 years. And I think about them when I teach a
Oh,
class.
dude.
I
Oh,
think
that's
about them
cool.
when I create a class.
Yeah.
I think about people that have emailed me and told me their stories.
Mm-hmm.
They are the camera. In my mind, they're right there.
Mm.
And I have some that have had some really, grief moments, lost a spouse or a family
Mm-hmm.
member, someone really close. And they've emailed me and told me about it. And when I teach a grief class, I'm teaching to that person.
Right. I see.
I'm offering that solace to that person the best that I can, because I I want to offer something. And if, I can give them 30 minutes to process and work through and feel
Hmm.
supported, that's what is needed. And so I think of somebody, for me, I don't even think about the camera as the camera. I
Mm.
literally, in my head, I'm thinking if there are people out there right in front of me.
Right. That's a great idea. Yeah, I never really thought about it that way, because even sometimes I record my little intros or anything, and it always feels like I'm still new at this. So, looking into the camera idea is still something that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So now that little insight of like, maybe I'll imagine it as someone who might be listening, or I know there's a few people who consistently listen, so I'll definitely imagine them. That's a really interesting way to put it. So this might be a weird question. Has there ever been a point at which you considered not doing this or stopping or
I think this is the first year ever I've thought of that.
mm,
Um, Before this year, if you'd asked me that, I would have said no.
mm-hmm,
I was absolutely 100% on board. This year, there's just been so much going on and so much. I still think to myself, I can't see myself doing that,
mm-hmm.
because I really want to do it and I want to offer it, and I don't think I can stop doing that. It's not like it's a lot of feedback that's like I need that feedback. It's that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the least I can do.
Right, okay.
It's the least I can do to offer. Um, I teach the way I want to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
I offer what I want to be offered, as long as Lucy too.
Yeah.
Um, and I've always stuck with that. And I think for a brief amount of time at the beginning of this year, I got lost and I thought I
Mm.
needed to do what other people were doing, what other people were telling me to do.
Mm.
And I
Right.
realigned with this is who I am.
Right.
This is what I want to offer. This is how I want to offer it. And Lucy's very helpful. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to
Mm.
compare to anybody else, because I'm not anybody else. And I
Right.
can't do that. And so stepping away and saying, this is who I am, was very empowering.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I came out of that this year, but I think this year I have thought about that multiple
Mm.
times. Am I doing what I should? Is this enough? Is this
Mm.
the best way to do this? Is this my best methodology for helping? Is there another method that's better? And I did try some other things this year,
Mm-hmm.
trying some other platforms and some other situations, just to see if I felt that was a better way of offering things. And I still think that maybe I'm where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't received any magical signs telling me that's not true. So
Right, right. Well, that's good news for me. No, I'm glad, because I always enjoy watching your videos, and I love that what you said about possibly getting lost in what other people say you should be doing, or the way that certain channels and social media and marketing stuff can try and shape you and to try and make it into this certain thing. And I love that you reconnected with who you are, and I think that's something that I resonate in what I've seen in your comments and stuff, that other people resonate with who you are as a person, not just the yoga or not just Lucy, but it's this combination of who you are. And even your videos of your updates, when you did do them, there was such vulnerability and openness in that. And I think it's just so appreciated and refreshing to get that kind of authenticity in a world of social media where things are so contrived and
yeah.
things are so forced and shaped, and it's just so challenging. So I just want to acknowledge like that authenticity really comes through for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. I like hearing that, because sometimes I don't know.
Right, right.
Um, but definitely, you literally described it completely as this sort of forcing you to be and do a certain thing and
Mm,
fit into a certain box. And should you do this, and should you look like this, and should you
mm-hmm.
be offering this, and really drilling back down and saying, this is what I believe is what is the best from my perspective. And obviously my perspective is just one. But offering it from a place of truth and honesty and authenticity means you're really being who you're supposed to be.
Right.
And not who somebody else tells you to. And it gets, you hear it so much. Social media is so heavy, and it really tries to fit you into a certain mold. And I have decided that I do not ever fit in molds. I'm very bad with that.
Yeah.
I've spent my life being very, don't try to put me in a box, because I'm not that person. And I fight it, but somehow I got lost, and I thought I need to be something else. And I thought, nope, this is not who I need to be, and not who somebody else tells me I am supposed to be. I am who I want to be. And I think the best teachings, the best classes, the best offerings come from a place of where you are at as a teacher. And Jason Crandall taught me that way early in my career. He said, teach from you. And if you're not teaching from you, you're going to burn out really quickly.
Right.
And so I really try to teach from, what's going on with me. If I feel like something's happening in my life, I'm going to put a class together because I'm sure that somebody else is feeling that same thing.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
And so every class is based on either people reaching out to me and telling me a story, or me going through a process in my life of something happening. Like, there'll be a lot more of the compassion fatigue videos, the burnout videos coming up. And I've started that whole series because I think I got such a big response to my video about burnout that I thought there are a lot of people out there suffering from compassion fatigue, which I had not even heard of until January of this year.
Right. Okay.
Someone's like, you have compassion fatigue. And I was like, what is that?
So what is compassion fatigue?
It's actually, it makes so much sense what you hear about. It is when somebody is deeply empathetic, and they are someone who is a caretaker for a group of people, a person in particular, someone who, I don't know if you're familiar, Kitten Lady is someone I think of always when I think of compassion fatigue.
Right, okay.
She is so busy saving thousands and millions of kittens and trying to save the world that way, that she gets exhausted and burnt out.
Right, okay.
Because she is trying so hard to do something to help someone that it just literally, you get drained out. And because you're not refilling fast enough, you just kind of turn into a husk of a person.
Right.
I mean, I lost my creativity. I couldn't even create a class. I couldn't even figure out how to do that anymore, which is so intuitive for me. It's not physical exhaustion, although it can be. It can affect your heart, your digestion, your thinking, your clarity, your fogginess, your sleep. It can be coupled with burnout and adrenal fatigue. It can be very similar to that. But compassion fatigue is from literally being like a caretaker of another person. And a lot of us are being put in that position now because our parents are aging, and we're becoming caretakers for family members or friends who are sick and cannot take care of themselves. And we're exhausted.
Yeah, I think so many people would resonate with that. And I love that idea of pulling from your own experience. And like, I do songwriting as well. Nothing high level, but just for myself and a few friends. And that's something for songwriting, like tapping into these universal emotions, right? These universal human experiences, and trying to just reflect on what the experience is like for yourself, and putting yourself in that position, whether it's not an experience even that you maybe experienced exactly the same, but that you can put yourself in that position. So I love that you bring in that idea of whether it's something that you're experiencing, like burnout, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to speak to that because that's what I'm going through, or it's someone else reaching out to you. Like, I love that you're bringing that in from experience, and I think that's probably why it resonates so well, because it's kind of in the collective that's kind of popping up.
Yeah, I think the collective is has so much going on, like collective
Mm-hmm.
grief, collective loss, collective joy, collective
Mm-hmm.
everything. There's collective hope, this lack of
Right,
hope,
right.
the two opposing sides, collective
Mm-hmm.
fear and uncertainty. Um, Speaking to that, anxiety, so many of us are now, it's not that this anxiety is new,
Mm.
it's that we're finally speaking up, that we're
Right,
finally
right.
saying and calling it anxiety. And so now we have a lot of people that are saying, oh, I've been anxious like that forever. And I'm like, I have anxiety, intense anxiety for a large number
Mm.
of things. And so being able to offer classes that respond to that, things that have worked for me,
Mm-hmm.
practices that work for me, visualizations that work for me to help ground me and center me. Maybe they don't work for everybody, but what if they work for one person, five
Right,
people, 1,000 people, Um, it's something I'm going through and I live with. Anxiety is not something that ever goes away. You
right. I
just learn
see.
to work with it better.
Right, okay.
You learn to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stress. Stress never goes away. You just learn how to manage it better.
Interesting, right. So it's not, the intention is not to get rid of it, it's to relate to
Yeah.
it in a different way.
Yes.
Mm.
And to see it in a different way. And I think that's a lot of what my classes are about are not, we're gonna make things go away. It's all
Mm-hmm.
love and light, everything's perfect.
Yeah.
No, it's be okay with grief that comes up, anger that
Mm-hmm.
comes up, frustration that comes up, sadness that comes up. Learn to walk side by side with it because it's going to
Mm-hmm.
keep happening throughout your life. And they have lessons to teach you.
Mm.
There are things you can learn. They're an experience in and of themselves. And if you didn't have that, would you have the other? Would you even value the
Right.
other? So
Mm-hmm.
you need to really be non-judgmental, not just about what you are physically, but non-judgmental about any emotions that come up or feelings that come up. They're there and they're there for a reason because emotions work to tell us something's happening and we need
Mm.
to be aware and check in and take care of ourselves. They're like little
Mm-hmm.
signs that say self-care time.
Right, right, right. Little
Pause,
road
take a
workers on the side of the road giving you little signals. Pull over
yeah, it's
here, pit stop.
pause
Right.
time. It's a
Yeah.
pause stop. Yeah.
Danger ahead,
Um,
watch out.
Exactly. And they're,
Mm-hmm.
those markers are really useful. So ignoring them doesn't make them go away.
Mm.
And pretending they're not there doesn't make them go away either.
Yeah.
So just learning to walk with them and be
Mm-hmm.
in space with them. Um, I love that sometimes on my meditation cushion, I will sit there and I will something really dark will come up, um, a bit of grief from the past or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I will just sit there and I will cry, but I will sit there and I will be with it. I
Right,
will I
right.
will be in that space with it. And yin, you can do that as well. A lot of times those
Mm-hmm.
emotions come up. Breathe through it, let it move through your body,
Mm-hmm.
allow your body physically to process it, and that allows your psyche to process it. So
Right.
really letting those more difficult, more challenging things come up in your practices really, I think, helps you be once again proactive and less reactive.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because for me, I've played with this idea, and I'm still getting used to this this idea, and it's like, okay, so emotion starts, some sort of emotion starts, and if there's an interruption in it, does that get stuck in your body, and will it get stuck until it's allowed to move through the system?
Mhm.
Right, so I wonder about that, and then we often resist it, but then sometimes it builds and builds and builds until you can't hold it in any longer, and then it comes out in these weird ways. But if you're able to do something like yin and you notice that, oh, when I stretch my hip, for some reason, all these memories of a loved one that had passed away years ago, all of a sudden this just starts rushing up. And there's this tendency to want to go away from that. And I like that you brought in the love and light, right? Of this kind of new age spirituality is sometimes just focused on, oh, love and light and spiritual bypass. But I think you're right that there's something important about the opposite side, that it's information, it's telling you something. And if you can be with that, I like that, in a non-judgmental space, then it can actually do what it's, I don't know, meant to do, or it would
Mhm.
do its natural thing, I guess, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Just a natural processing of we all get angry.
Mm-hmm. You get angry?
It's what we, yeah, I do. I do get very
I'm just
angry.
kidding. Hopefully not at
um,
Lucy.
weirdly, Lucy's actually a really weird little cat. Sometimes
Hmm.
she will just get really, really angry and she'll just
Does
go
she?
after other animals in the house.
Yeah,
She's kind of
yeah.
got that little weird anger. Um, but it's what you do
Hmm.
once anger comes up.
Right.
What do you do with it? Do you stop and think for a moment and say, why am I angry?
Hmm.
What caused this anger?
Right.
How am I going to focus this anger in a way that is sensible and practical?
Mm.
How is this anger going to help me?
Ooh, I like that.
How's it going
Yeah,
to move me
yeah.
forward in some way? Because
Right.
anger is useful. It is a very useful. If
Hmm.
you don't ever get angry, then you never get angry about horrible things happening in the world.
Right.
You
Like
never take
passionate about
action.
things. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
see.
And you don't take action.
Hmm.
Anger makes you take action.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's a good thing. So I think that, grief has to be processed. I read
Hmm.
something today that was so beautiful. I hope I don't butcher this, but it was sort of
Right.
like a phrase of like, grief is love that has no place to go.
Hmm.
And I love that because literally when people are grieving, it's that they loved something or someone so much. And yet that thing or person is gone
Hmm.
and their love has nowhere to go. It has no recipient. And so it's very painful
Right.
to have that much and have no receptacle for it.
Hmm.
So for me, grief has a whole new view. That may
Right,
be a class
right.
coming up. It may be
Yeah,
based
yeah.
on that little. That's another way I create classes is a
Hmm.
quote,
Hmm.
a song, a
Hmm.
musical song, um, a reading, a book title that really just grabs me.
Hmm. Now, did
It'll
I
be like,
hear that right with your music taste? It was something maybe unexpected. There was like grunge or something in there. Did I
I
hear
have a
that?
lot. I have a
Okay,
lot of
okay.
different music. It was
Yeah.
funny because Spotify came out with
The
their little,
Wrapped.
2023 what you did this year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like 82 genres.
Right, okay.
It's a big span, I'm
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
you. 32,000 hours
Hmm.
listened. I have I think it's like 123 styles of music.
Right, yeah.
I will listen to pretty much everything or anything in any language.
Right, right, yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter if it's in English or not.
Mm.
I have a really eclectic music. And my kids just laugh at me. They're like, you're so all over the board. They don't even know what to do with you on YouTube Music or Spotify. It's just random throw stuff at you and see if you like it. But I have a very vast, and
Mm.
sometimes when I practice to heavy metal.
Right, do you? Okay,
I
interesting.
do. And you know what? It works. When you're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
angry, heavy metal works.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah.
um, any kind of music. I mean, it really, music is, as someone who writes music, you probably are an audiophile like I am.
Mm-hmm.
Music people, our mood is so interwoven with music
Mm-hmm.
that we can play a song and immediately we can be taken to a different emotion, a different
Mm-hmm.
level. And we can work through stuff that way. So
Mm-hmm.
music has always been super powerful to me. I played piano for years. I
Oh,
played
did you? Okay. Oh,
saxophone
do you?
for a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
of years. Yeah. And I've been singing forever,
Mm-hmm.
um, since I was 3, according to my mother.
Wow, okay.
And so music has always been part of my life. So I think I've always just had a taste for a little bit of every kind of music. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Do you still like play or sing?
I still sing. I
Yeah.
just don't let anybody hear me
Right,
ever.
okay, okay.
There's my introvert part of me, that very nervous,
Mm-hmm.
anxious introvert is in my singing,
Mm.
actually. Um, but I am trying to, like, every now and then on Instagram, I'll drop a little bit of something I sang. I'm trying to be more musical. I've been doing more sound baths with the
Right, okay.
bowls because I
Yeah.
still have that musical aspect to my
Mm-hmm.
life. Um, and that's become more. I was so nervous to do that the first few times. I'm just
Yeah.
so nervous. But everybody's loved it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very happy to share that. I think 2024 is going to be the year I may actually sing publicly.
Oh, that would be, yeah, yeah.
It may happen. um, it may happen in like a workshop or a sound bath or something's going to happen, but I feel like it's right there. It's almost ready to go. It's so close to the edge, but I do occasionally just plug that amp into my computer, and I have a great microphone that is for actual singing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just sing what I want to and whatever I feel like, and it feels really good, but I'm still so nervous about public version of that.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a whole different game. Like I used to be really nervous and not really sing in front of anybody. So that was a long time. And then I took actually a music industry arts course here in London, Ontario.
Mm.
And so it was actually about recording. So I'm an audio engineer as well.
Oh.
So during that process, it was, yeah, going to open mics and actually starting to sing in front of people. And it was an uncomfortable process, but it was something that I felt like actually kind of like this podcast. It was something that I felt like I didn't want to do, but I didn't want fear to stop me from doing it.
Mhm.
So I get really uncomfortable in certain conversations, right? Of like, oh, I overthink. Should I have said that? Should I not have said that? Oh, that was a bit awkward, right? So the idea of my conversation being recorded and then shared with people was something that was holding me back from wanting to do this, right? So it held me back for a long time, and I decided this past year that, you know what, this was the year I was just going to do it. And I'm so glad I did it, because then I get to have great conversations with people like you.
Thank you. No, I think that's great. I feel exactly the same way. I feel like I don't want fear to be the thing that stops me from doing something I've always loved to do. And oddly, I have sung publicly all of my life until I became an adult, which
Oh,
apparently
really?
didn't bother me.
Right.
Somewhere out there is a record where I sang as an elementary school child. I had a solo. So somewhere
Oh,
out
did you?
there in the world
Someone will
is
find it.
it's a small solo of about 2 minutes with me. I sang in choirs. I sang solo. I sang at events. I sang at my high school graduation.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
But I was utterly terrified, and it made me so sick. But I did it, and I just feel like I'm coming back around to that point where I'm less concerned about what people say or think, and I'm less anxious about that, and I'm just more excited to say, this is me. This is something I love and who I am. It took me forever to share my watercolor art, which I've been doing for years.
Yeah, yeah.
But it took me forever to do that and feel comfortable, like showing people that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a great time doing it. And I love it. And it makes me so happy. And I'm never going to sell those paintings. And I don't care.
Right, right.
It's for me, right? So I think I need to get into that point where music is the same way and singing is the same way, because I have a first soprano voice that I've had forever. And, I feel like I could do some stuff. So I had voice lessons for years. I should know how to do it.
Okay. So it is there.
It is
So
there.
when did you start getting nervous about it? Like when you were older?
I think it was probably high school.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, everybody's nervous in high school.
Yeah, you
We're
get
all
more
being
self-conscious
judged,
around that. Yeah, for sure.
But I was in all the choirs. I was in the small choirs. I was in the little groups. I was soloist. I just got so nervous. Probably my junior year in high school. And I just got nervous from then on. I just could never really. I sang to my kids.
Right. Yeah.
I still sing to my kids.
Yeah.
I sing to the cats at the shelter. Does that help?
Right. Yeah. That's an audience.
I sing for a good 30 minutes to those cats. Other people stand outside the door sometimes,
Right.
but
So who do you like to sing? Like who's your kind of jam?
Oh, anybody. I really do love Broadway show tunes,
Right. Okay.
musicals.
Okay. Yeah.
I love musicals. I love musicals forever. I started a long time ago memorizing pretty much the whole thing of Into the Woods.
Right. Okay.
And Crazy for You. And I've always kind of leaned into those. My mother plays piano, so she's always play stuff, and I would learn the lyrics to them. So I sing a lot of those very, very old songs because my mother is very old and she likes very old music.
Yeah.
So we sang a lot of those. And for me in the car, whatever comes on.
Mm. Right. So you don't have a specific station, like a country station that you always have, or you just kind of,
No,
again, here's the box and then you throw away the box and.
yeah, no, I do consistently for the last 3 years. My number one band has been One Republic.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Because they are so talented musically, the
Mm.
entire group, that I just admire them for that. So I do listen to a lot of One Republic.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And he has a great voice too. He has a fabulous
Right.
voice. Um, I was really obsessed with opera for a number of years.
Okay.
And did learn to sing some opera. I'm not very good at it, but I do know some opera. And yeah, a little bit of everything. Pop songs. I memorize anything.
Right.
I have a weird eidetic memory, so I memorize things very fast. So I can hear it a couple of times and I'll know it, so I can just sing it.
A lot of people don't have that. A lot of singers don't have that. Yeah,
I
so
know
you're natural.
it's a gift to just kind of memorize stuff very quickly and be able to regurgitate it, I guess, to some extent. But and I like to play with music. So when I sing it, I'll sing it completely different because I like to do a different tone.
And then, yeah.
I liked a different tone. I like to add different things to it, a different scale. You know, I like to I'll sing it once the right way through, and then the second time it's all free.
Do harmonies and just sing along.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll add my own thing to it because I like to add my own little,
flair.
If you're playing music, you're always going to want to add your thing to it. You're never going to play it the exact same way someone else played it, because what's the point?
Right. And then that comes back to the way that you're teaching and showing up, right? You're not trying to be anybody else. You're just trying to do what's right for you. And I do think that really comes through. So maybe some music in the channel in the future.
Maybe.
Maybe you'll release it under an alias where you can just do it anonymously.
It'll probably be under an alias. It won't be on the channel.
Well, if you ever want to work on something, I do recording and stuff like that. So maybe we could cross paths in the future with that.
Maybe, absolutely. Yeah. I'm this year was the year of being very open to like new ideas, new things, new directions, and really like saying, hey, that sounds like a cool idea. So yeah, absolutely. I'm all over the place in things. I've even thought of like a channel for the cats.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I live in an insane household with 7 cats. So that right there is a channel.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just for the heck of it. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see where my time and energy goes in the next few months. And I take December off traditionally to kind of reboot myself and rethink my plan for what I want to do and how I want to do stuff. So that's my brainstorming time. Is the winter is the brainstorming time.
Yeah. So do you go through like the seasons and you kind of like have certain things that you kind of move with?
Yes, definitely. I had a beautiful restorative yoga teacher that was very elementally and seasonally oriented. And she was gracious enough to really take me under her wing and teach me all about living in sync with the seasons. And every year I feel like I get a little better at it. And I think when I work with the seasons, I am much more intuitive and I'm honoring the energy of each one of those seasons. And I get things done better when I honor that energy. Because winter, it's very introspective. We're reflective and introspective. Our energy is all going this way inward versus outward. In the summer, it's all going outward.
Right.
So if you honor that kind of energy, then you notice that you naturally have kind of gone with that. You reconnect with that natural, and your body reacts appropriately. It likes that. It feels more in tune, because that's how we were made to be, is aligned with the seasons and that energy.
Yeah, because especially moving into the winter and your Christmas, I feel like we can get more introspective, but we can also get lost in the hustle and bustle and distractions. So I love the idea that you take December as a pause, right? The power of the pause comes through again. And you pause leading into the new year. I think this will be probably coming out around the new year, maybe around New Year's, between Christmas and then. So I think this will be a really great time to just kind of take that pause and reflect. So for moving into next year, what's kind of shifting in the channel? What's going to be maybe new, if you can speak to that at all?
I can, since I record so far in advance
Right,
now.
right.
um, I've had some conversations, and this will actually, the first one will come out in the next few weeks, that will be about working with long COVID.
Mm,
I've had some people reach out to me, and I've had some really deep conversations, done a lot of research, taken my time. And I really feel like this is a group of people that could really use some extra care and very specific care and support. And so there'll be long COVID, more compassion fatigue classes coming out, more meditation,
mm.
hopefully more breath work,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Always yin will always come out, but a little bit more restorative too, because I feel like I've had a balance of way more yin, and restorative is a really great practice too. It's a really healing practice that's really good for people.
Mm,
And I think a more diverse channel
right.
with maybe some chats about things that come up and things I've learned, and things about I've been very hesitant to be, I'm very private.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't share a lot of it's very hard for me to do that, to be
Mm-hmm.
share private information about my life with other people. And so I'm really trying to kind of step out of that and say, would anybody be interested in how my rituals are set up every
Mm-hmm.
morning, and some of the things that I do that might be supportive to someone else, that someone else might like? So maybe taking a look at some of the things that I do personally in my own personal life as practices or habits or things I've learned, and sharing some of that with chats as well. Maybe some interviews of some
Mm,
people. Um, just a little bit more of everything. Um, I really think of yoga as including all of these things that I offer. They're all things that I personally practice every week.
mm-hmm.
And so I feel like to be able to offer a much more rounded, holistic version of yoga as a practice and as a lifestyle, yin, restorative, hatha, vinyasa, flow, breath, meditation, yoga nidra,
Mm,
all of those things are super important to my personal life and my personal practices. And I would really like to share more of that
mm,
with the channel in a more focused way, and really kind of checking in with people, because I think I've been very private. And so I
mm.
think people are kind of wondering some things. So maybe a little bit more open and vulnerable about who I am and what I do and my life. And I really feel like that's where it's going to go
Mm.
mostly.
I love that. Yeah, no, I resonate with all that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I've already just getting to know you in this podcast too has been a pleasure for me. So I really appreciate you agreeing to come on here and just kind of have a chat with me. So again, it's Yoga Ranger Studio. Where can people kind of find your stuff? I think you also offer courses or training,
I do.
and yeah.
I offer, so I have the YouTube channel, which is the
Mm-hmm.
Yoga Ranger Studio with Aprille Walker. And you can
Mm-hmm.
find me on YouTube under that, Yoga Ranger. That's easy to enter. I also run a membership site that is open twice a year. It's presently closed, but will be open again in the new year for a short period of time. And that site is so much stuff. It's
Mm,
much more personalized. I think if people ever wanted to get to know me, that would be the best way to do it, because I am one-on-one with people. I have direct line chats. People can reach
mm.
out to me. We have weekly live events, workshops, 750 classes on there.
Wow.
Um, we have events that are included in that. The New Moon live yoga is included every single month in that, plus a lot of other live events in there, and also a support group. So we have like a
Mm.
community that's connected to that. So we share a lot of stuff on there, including like art stuff and books we read and all sorts of things. So it's a great community that I absolutely love these people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, great way to get closer to me and to get to know more of what I offer in a more holistic version. But I also offer a pranayama or breath class, and that's a course that's on my the yogaranger.vhx.tv, which is my member site, but it also houses all my courses. And that is a full-length pranayama class that takes you through very slowly and methodically building a breath practice that you can use different times of day and for different things, and really helping you build that into a daily practice. And then I have building sustainable meditation practice. I know I struggled so much to build a meditation practice, type A personality.
Yeah.
And it took me so long to settle into a practice that I just want to help people find their way a little bit easier. So it's sort of a beginners or someone new to or struggling with meditation. It takes you through all the different kinds of a large number, maybe not all of them, but a large number of different styles of meditation. So you can kind of explore those and see how they work for you and which one you really want to dive deep into more, and kind of offers you some tips and techniques, ways to really build that daily meditation practice, starting very small. And those are going to be the things that probably course-wise on there, but I also have a lot of, if somebody's looking for to learn more about the lunar cycles through yoga or through chakras, or want to learn more about yoga philosophy, I have the yamas and niyamas on there as well in class form, as well as what we call Dharma chats. So they'll be talking about the philosophy and some texts that go with it, as well as a little mini practice to implement that into a practice. So lots of fun stuff to check out at yogaranger.vhx.tv. That's lots of stuff on there, and lots of Lucy.
Yeah, of course.
So much Lucy. Much Lucy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And a lot of fun stuff. So for me, honestly, I love, and I'm on Insight Timer as well. So if anybody wants to find me on Insight Timer as well. But my true love is to be in a smaller group situation, which the member side is a much smaller group of people. And I know everybody much more personally. And I really like that dynamic, because it's like having a studio that's virtual.
Right. Yeah. Virtual studio. That's cool.
So it's a lot of much more personalized thing, and people can really share a lot more. So I really, that's kind of my passion, is that membership is everything I've ever wanted in a membership or a studio. I made it.
Right.
And I continue to add things to it. Whenever I think of something, I'm like, I really love to have this, I add it. And that's where everybody can ask for what they need. What do people want to see? What do you need? What do you like? What's your favorite thing? How long do you want it to be? I actually filmed 2 classes today based on direct requests from 2 clients on that member site. So they're getting exactly what they asked for, which means they get what they want.
Right.
Which is good, and what they need. So that's my really happy place. But you can always find me on YouTube. You can always find me at theyogaranger.com. You can see all my courses and all my stuff on there. And that's a way to email me if you have any questions as well. You can always email me through there. And I actually answer all my emails. And all my messages and all my comments myself.
Right.
So,
you don't force your kids to do that?
Nope.
Not yet?
They don't. They are not allowed to do that. They are allowed to post pictures that I've already decided we're going to post.
Right. Yeah.
They can automate that. But yeah, I answer all my stuff myself. So it's when you reach out, it's me that people get, which has actually been one of the huge things on my YouTube channel. And me as a teacher is that I want you to be able to treat me as a person.
Right.
And so when you reach out, you reach me. And I'm going to do everything I can to answer your question as much as I can, or at least give you a direction to go.
Right.
So I want to be accessible. And somebody told me, actually, that was one of the things at the beginning of this year, someone told me I should stop doing, is being accessible.
Right.
And I said, no, that's so important to me, is to be accessible and normal and easy to get to, which is it's really important to me. So definitely, if you reach out to me, I respond.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You emailed me back, so that was amazing. And I'm just so appreciative of all your work, and clearly the passion and the care that you put into your craft, and just being there for people and creating this community and creating all of this work. I think you opened up about 8 more doors of things that I'd love to talk to you about, but I don't want to hog your time. I know that, but maybe we could talk again sometime about the more philosophy side, and more of the reading and stuff like that, because that was a whole area we didn't even get into. So
I know. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually had books down here too. I was like, I'm gonna make sure I should have the books.
right, okay. Well, I
We'll
mean,
have
if
to
you
come
want to
back
shout
to
them
that.
out, if you want to shout them out just quickly, if you have some
Really
favorites.
quickly,
Yeah.
you asked about yin, and I
Mm-hmm.
really want to shout out because these are some of my favorite
Yeah,
people. I
yeah.
actually know a couple of these people. The Language of Yin by Gabrielle Harris. I actually know Gabrielle Harris. She's a
Right,
wonderful
okay.
teacher. So if you're looking to dive into yin, this is a beautiful, sweet experience of
Mm-hmm.
experiencing yin. She has the poses and practices in here. She has breath, meditation. She has it all in there. And she's such a sweet voice.
Mm.
It's really philosophical and very yin living. And then Brightening Your Inner Skies, Yin and Yoga with Norman Blair was one of my first
Oh,
yin
that's
yoga
nice.
books.
Yeah.
The idea of living a yin life. This book is more about living yin than it is practicing yin, but it's a lifestyle. And he's got such a great way of presenting it that makes you just want to live more yin.
Right, right.
But if you are wanting to learn about yin itself, this is called Between Heaven and Earth. This is a guide to Chinese medicine by 2 licensed acupuncturists and doctors. They're actually MDs as well. This is probably the best way to figure out if you want to learn more about elemental and seasonal and traditional Chinese medicine, as it is used in meridians and organ systems and yin yoga and the practice of yin yoga. It actually, you can apply all of this to any kind of yoga.
Right.
So super in depth, and it'll take you forever to get through it, but that's okay. It's a long-term journey. It's not like a quick read. But those are my 3 yin favorite books out there. So yeah, Gabrielle Harris, Norman Blair is wonderful, and Harriet Benfield and Ephraim Korngold is the Between Heaven and Earth. This is actually the most used by acupuncturists. Every acupuncturist will suggest this book.
Okay.
It's often used in acupuncture training, and it's definitely used in yin yoga. It should be used in yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
I used it in yin yoga teacher training for my students, so yes, it's included in mine. But yes, that's a really wonderful book to have, to really learn a lot about seasons and elements, and really connecting to your body and the earth and the elements around us. So a great read as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think you gave us a lot of depth, or maybe foreshadowing for a next conversation if you're up for that next year. So this has been amazing, Aprille. It's been so wonderful talking to you and just getting to know you and your work. So once again, thank you for all your videos. Thank you for everything. Thank you for Lucy, bringing her into the practice, and all your animals, and keeping us sane throughout this whole crazy ride. So this will be probably coming out again around New Year's. So if there's any message that you have, a lasting message of what you want to kind of leave people with, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Take care of yourselves, please. However you do it, take care of yourselves and be aware, and set in motion whatever self-care practices you need to care for yourself. Because if you don't care for yourself, then you have nothing left to give anybody else. So it's a really great way to continue being the most wonderful human you can be, is to love yourself and take care of yourself first and foremost. And you do that any way you can. So I hope to see you in the practices.
Definitely.
If you've never done yoga before and you say to yourself, yoga is not for me, I'm not flexible, yin yoga and restorative yoga is for everyone, particularly the non-flexible people.
Right.
So they are practices that I think once you do them, you will continue doing them. I can almost guarantee if you do yin or restorative, you will always go back to them, because they are just so life-changing. So everybody can do yoga. Definitely yin and restorative are great places to start, or if you've ever not felt comfortable, or if you have injuries or areas of the body that need to be cared for, yin and restorative are there for you for that purpose. to help you care for yourself. And I hope you come visit me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, April. We really appreciate it. So Yoga Ranger Studio, check it out on YouTube, and I'll post all your links and anything that we kind of talk about. I'll try and include whatever I can in the description. And again, thank you so much.